Hopefully we move someone without touching them.
I think people need to do things that scare the shit out of them.
That's what it's all about.
Becoming Player One is a reservoir of stories and experience. It's a promise to show up for ourselves so that we can show up for others. Hi everybody, and welcome to the first ever episode of Becoming Player One. This is not the first episode I've ever shot. I actually did episode 2 first with a good friend of mine, Wilson Hincapi, and it was so helpful in getting my feet wet and getting me comfortable and getting me confident to do this by myself, which I am extremely nervous about. So shout out to Wilson. Thank you so much for having that conversation with me. I had a blast. It's made me feel so much better about moving forward with this podcast. So let me tell you a little bit about this podcast. I think the best approach here is to literally just read you what I wrote. Future episodes of this podcast will include interviews with friends of mine, local leaders, entrepreneurs, artists. It'll include, I have ideas to do like a reaction series to the Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is a huge inspiration for me. A lot of Eastern thinking there, a lot of mindfulness. So I would love to do a series like that. There's a lot coming for this podcast, but again, I want to introduce myself to you the right way. Maybe you'll connect with me, maybe you won't, and maybe I'll see you for future episodes of Becoming Player One. So I'll get right into it. Thanks for tuning in. Without further ado, welcome to the first ever episode of Becoming Player One. My name is Christian Parisi, and for the last 100 days of 2024, my goal has been to stockpile 4 to 6 episodes of this podcast. I'm gonna hit like 3, maybe. Life is so hard. Big shout out to the 10X rule by Grant Cardone, even though I know the math here is 2X. But my aim is to highlight local entrepreneurs, artists, and leaders by getting to know them, their strengths, and their weaknesses. For me and my generation, being born in 1992 means that we're the last human beings to walk in both worlds. I am of course referring to the world before internet and the world after internet. For that reason, I think it's prudent to describe my early years as teenager A and teenager B. Teenager A was truly creative. Between 10 and 15, I had an affinity for writing and drawing. I don't think I was particularly good at either, but a world without screen time allowed me to forge a connection to the natural world, the creative source, what I would learn to call God. With a lowercase g, I feel like it's important to mention that. I would not learn that about myself though until I was 30 years old and over a dozen self-help books deep. At 15, my parents got divorced, and at this point, the internet was really starting to heat up. As most moody, confused teenagers will tell you, I needed something to distract myself, and Silicon Valley did not disappoint.
Wake me.
Halo 3 didn't disappoint either.
You need me.
Spending hours in the woods with friends slowly became hours in the Viridian Forest by myself. Shout out to my Pokemon fam. Enter Teenager B. Teenager B was forged in the fires of the American ego, insistent that I could have my cake and eat it too. I was 16, 17, I was getting my driver's license, I thought I was hot shit. I was smart, but I was lazy, choosing to make friends in the orc capital city of Orgrimmar rather than in some sort of extracurricular activity. If you follow my journey, you'll hear me talk a lot about mindfulness and how the obstacle is the way. This was the part of my life where I lost the skill of focus and of mindfulness. It was the part where I started to avoid the obstacle. An explosion of technology meant the implosion of our attention span. I quickly found myself underwater in a sea of distractions, and I wouldn't resurface for nearly 15 years. In 2020, at 28, which is like almost 5 years ago now, that's crazy, I decided to leave my job as a restaurant manager to pursue an online degree in filmmaking at Full Sail University. This was also the time I committed to being a reader, something that always tugged at me deep below the surface. I would also start to consistently meditate in October of 2020, and I feel like it's important to note that in the last 6 months, there's been a lot going on in my life, and my meditation practice has suffered. Like, I still do it, but holy cow, life comes in waves, and we all go through it. The decision to go back to school was prompted by a book, and it's the reason I'm leaning into this podcast 4 years later. Mark Manson writes in The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck that happiness is solving problems, and you just have to find the problems you love to solve. That line changed my life. You'll come to learn that a lot of lines changed my life. Since graduating in 2023, I've been spending my time solving problems I love. I do freelance video marketing for businesses, and I recently broke into the wedding scene, something that used to terrify me. If you're still listening, it means that you're curious about what I have to say, and I can't thank you enough. Not just for listening, but I do appreciate it, but for being curious. If you're curious, you are courageous. If you only ever take one thing away from my channel, let it be this quote from Shunryu Suzuki. Another line that changed my life. In the beginner's mind, the possibilities are limitless, but in the expert's, they are few. One more time. In the beginner's mind, the possibilities are limitless, but in the expert's, they are few. It doesn't matter how much you think you know. The moment we think that our cup is full is the moment it starts to leak. The purpose of this channel is to foster growth, vulnerability, and community. I want this to become a place where people can come to improve themselves and the people around them. Becoming Player One is a reservoir of stories and experience. It's a promise to show up for ourselves so that we can show up for others. Thank you for listening to the first ever episode of Becoming Player One. Be sure to subscribe and share if you connected with it, and I'll see you next time, next Wednesday, where I catch up with one of my oldest friends and business mentors, Wilson Hincapie. Thank you for watching, stay curious, and stay mindful. Cut. That wasn't so bad. That was really fun.